with 5G, fifth generation of wireless technologies, which will be, the infrastructure there will be deployed on public right-of-ways like utility poles. And municipalities, so far, according to the FCC, are prohibited from having a moratorium on these things. A municipality cannot deny the 5G small cell sites for any reason. This is not an act of Congress at this time, and we would want to prevent that from happening because an act of Congress is much harder to change than an order from the FCC. I shared last night that you can, if you let your congressional representatives know that they want to vote no on House Resolution 7236, this would prevent anyone from suing, it would prevent telecom corporations from holding any liability for injury caused by their equipment. So basically, it would just give them carte blanche, which they already have. But anyway, we want to vote no on House Resolution 7236 and vote yes on House Resolution 530, which would render it, well, it would prevent these orders from the FCC from having any force or effect. So tell your congressional representatives, please vote yes on House Resolution 530. We've also got problems here with artificial intelligence, which is causing tremendous loss of jobs, and even personally, just loss of work. I'll say I completely orient by the work, and I say that with great pleasure, the work that it takes me to get through a day, like, preparing my food, growing it if I can, cleaning my house. All of those things, and of course, just about every job imaginable is now possible by a robot. So we're taking away our human interactions. And for me, that's also part of the internet's footprint. We're losing human know-how for how to cook, how to care for children, how to teach reading, how to heal ourselves, like how to make herbs, all of those things. So now we go to the question, okay, how do we shrink the internet's footprint? I have been collecting ideas about this from all over the world for quite a long time, and the ideas, I'll tell you some of the best ideas I've got, but honestly, they felt really lame to me. And then I thought of this idea, which is that if everyone could reduce their media consumption by 3% per month. So 3% is not such a big deal. My teachers, of course, said, Katie, how are you going to measure that? And I said, I have no idea. And they said, well, you can't, you need measuring devices to figure out how to do that. And I said, I don't have time for the measuring devices. Everyone's going to have to figure out what's 3% for you, what's 3% of reducing your consumption for you. I can tell you some of the ideas that are really great. So you want to wait at least 4 years to upgrade anything. You understand that every time you upgrade to a new device, or you acquire a new device, or you upgrade an app, you're engaging that global super-duper factory that, consumes all of the Earth's elements, conflict minerals, compounds, all that stuff. So wait at least 4 years to upgrade anything new. You want to get wired. And there, the reason is because wireless technologies take at least 10 times as much energy as wired communications. So the radio transmitters use an incredible amount of energy. And so get wired. And how do you do that? That's an excellent question. Every community is different, and you're going to have to research it probably on the internet and ask around and see if you can get help so that you get wired. We will need to consider mobility as an incredible luxury. When you have a smartphone, just think of it as a luxury portal to the internet. It is, and I'm not saying to get rid of it. Of course, I would like that, but it's not realistic. But if we can think of them as luxury portals and move toward back to desktops so that we have internet access only in stationary places, that would really reduce, that would help start reducing our consumption. We want to delay children's access at least until they have mastered reading, writing, and math on paper. So you understand that when a child begins to use a device, they begin consuming at earlier and earlier ages, and that, that again exponentially increases energy consumption and radio frequency radiation emissions for them. So that's not good. And now I'm going to throw in a wild card, which is that many people want universal access for all of humanity. So there are about 3 billion people who are not yet online on planet Earth. If we give these people access to the internet, which would be fair, we will exponentially increase consumption of electricity, greenhouse gas emissions, conflict mineral consumption, water consumption. You understand how that would be a disaster ecologically. But how do we reconcile that? Do we say, well, we can have what we've got, you can't have it? So, but then the other alternative would be that we who have access now will have to drastically reduce our consumption, our media use, so that people who say don't have toilets, which is an enormous part of the population in much of the world, so that they can have toilets, and then so that they can have internet cafes. How are we going to balance that out? How will we be fair with that? How will we move toward fairness? Some other ideas for reducing our footprint. We want to pressure manufacturers to build repairable modular electronics. So, like if your screen breaks and then you need to buy a whole new phone, think of all the energy that goes into manufacturing the other parts when all you really need is a repaired screen. So, and manufacturers will make more money if you buy a whole new phone, but if we're going to sustain ourselves a little bit longer, we want repairable modular electronics. You can delete all your old Facebook posts and emails. Those are just hanging out in data storage centers. And if you must have a mobile device, you want to keep the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth off unless you are using them, and keep airplane mode on. I'm learning that the newer phones don't allow you to turn things off easily. So before you buy something, make sure you can turn it off. And again, you want to pressure manufacturers so that we can turn things off. If you're a school or a business and you're able to make volume purchases, like you need 1,000 or 10,000 laptops or something, you have clout and you can pressure manufacturers and say, I'm not going to buy this unless we can turn these features off. If you are a web designer, you want to minimize videos, pop-ups, and slideshows. Anytime you have more data in something, that consumes more energy and thereby emits more greenhouse gases. So you understand, you want to simplify websites. If you are running a website, you want to link or embed videos rather than repost them. Because reposting them is just putting them freshly in a data center, taking more storage, using more energy, more greenhouse gas emissions. Manufacturers can collaborate with multiple companies to require suppliers to disclose all the chemicals and use safer alternatives. So again, when people or manufacturers have volume purchases, that's when pressure happens, is effective at making manufacturers make safer, more sustainable alternatives. And municipalities can take ownership of their utilities, water, gas, and electric utilities, and deliver fiber optics to the premise. So that would be wired access to every home and school. That would, we want to decrease use of wireless tech. Okay. I'm going to close by a question that a friend said I should talk about last week. She said, Katie, you must talk about what nourishes you while you compile all this information. And, wow. I will begin by saying that I admit on a daily basis, as often as possible, which is often because I need it, I admit that I am powerless over technology and capitalism, and my life is unmanageable. And I mean that completely. Once I admit my powerlessness, and I admit that if I go forward and I say, I can do this, I'm lying to myself, I'm in an illusion. I just don't have that power. I can become aware of what's happening. And really what I need is, I need so many other people to help figure out, how do we realistically do this? How do we realistically reduce the footprint on what we have become utterly dependent on? I read a few months ago from this Buddhist man who lived in the 1600s. He wrote a version of the I Ching, which is the Chinese book of truth, and the I Ching considers nature the teacher. And this man wrote that he struggled to find mentors and teachers, so he had no fixed teacher. And so he considered everyone his teacher. He tried to learn from everyone. I would say that's the same situation we're in right now. Everyone is an expert here in how we can reduce our footprint, and everyone can teach us. And we all really need to listen to each other and to ourselves in order to move forward with this great question. I thank you all so much for hearing me out, and thank you very much.